Each week on Culinary Confidential, Christina Cates, a seasoned foodie who has worked at some of New York City's top restaurants, will share her passion for the culinary world. Whether you're a professional chef, a restaurant enthusiast, or a lover of good food, Christina dives into the heart of hospitality, exploring the trends, triumphs, and challenges facing the food service profession. And you won't want to miss her chats with some of the most interesting and influential industry voices. And now, please take your seat at the table as Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates starts now, exclusively on AM 970. The Answer.
Welcome to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates. This show is produced in association with my dear friend, Lucas A. Ferrara. This year, I have some great things in the works for Culinary Confidential, and I'll start having some guests on the show from other cities in the country. Obviously, New York is my heart, but I think it would be fun to hear from people out in California or down in Miami or even internationally. I'll try and cover as much as I can while keeping the topics diverse and interesting. Now, this is the first show of the new year. I hope everyone enjoyed their holiday season and was able to just indulge a little and relax a bit and just appreciate life. It might be cliche, but it is the new year, and after all the excessive indulging comes the New Year's resolutions. So obviously the topic for this show is going to be centered around health and wellness. This is not only a New Year's resolution, but health and wellness is the biggest trend going on right now. You see it in every area of the world, but especially in the hospitality industry. Restaurants now have a focus on health and wellness more than ever. You'll see a lot of places having mocktail menus available now, which if you don't know what a mocktail is, it's a cocktail without the alcohol. There are plant-based menus. There's a focus on sustainable and locally sourced ingredients. There's transparency offered with clean labeling on menus. There are alternative diet customizations available. Like, for example, if you practice a keto lifestyle, most restaurants will easily omit the carbohydrate portion of the item for you. These trends reflect the growing intersection of culinary creativity, health consciousness, and environmental responsibility in the restaurant industry. And then let's not forget about the hotel industry, which is exploding with wellness trends currently. You have wellness-centered room design that offers sleep-focused amenities, air and water purification systems, natural materials in decor and furnishings. You also have fitness and movement options, whether it's the fitness centers in the hotels or outdoor activities offered. There are spas and holistic wellness experiences offered, healthy dining options on in-room menus, stress management programs. The options are limitless because at the end of the day, health is wealth. So I'm going to have on the show tonight two incredible people that have made a career out of health and wellness lifestyles and mindset. My first guest tonight is Chris Vasami, founder of the Vasami Method and Vasami Training. Chris has had some health issues over the year, which has motivated him to become really focused on being the best version of himself. After retiring from professional baseball, he transitioned into coaching and training. My guest later in the hour is Matt Schiffman, head of sales for Gainful, one of the fastest growing sports nutrition powder supplement companies in the country. He's also one of my good friends and someone I look up to as a health and wellness inspiration. I can't wait for you to hear his story. Chris, welcome to Culinary Confidential. I'm so honored to start the year off with you with such a striking and motivated individual.
Hi, Christina. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, anytime. Chris, can you take me back from the beginning? I did the small summary earlier of your background, but just please give me the journey in your words.
Absolutely. I grew up right outside New York City, started my baseball career, college career at Notre Dame, transferred and finished up at Elon, and I was lucky enough to get drafted by the Colorado Rockies and played about 6 years of professional baseball. All during that time period, I started my first business, which is Vasami Training, where I train baseball and softball players anywhere from the ages of 7 all the way through college and pro, and take a really holistic approach to training players, mind, body, spirit, physical, all of it, just to help them understand that, you know, the process is what matters the most before we get the results.
Right.
And so being able to train a holistic person. And people say to me all the time, well, you know, what's it like to train an 8-year-old compared to a 14-year-old, compared to a 16-year-old? And really what it boils down to is when you take the approach that you are working with another human being and you have to take into account everything that's going on in their life outside of your training session, it really sets you up for success while you're with that person training. So that was my first business, Vasami Training. And what's interesting, too, is that during that whole time period in my life, I really had a certain definition of what hard was. And hard was, math class in high school and SAT prep. Hard was, deciding that you wanted to get a Division I scholarship, and now all the pain and sacrifice and discipline that went into that. And then choosing a scholarship, going to school, being part of a top 5 program, transferring, being a part of building another program, being the captain of that team, getting drafted, and now you're drafted, and your whole life you've been this team-focused player, but now you're in the pros trying to get to the major leagues, and it really is about you, all while trying to keep the essence of being a team player at the same time, so navigating those waters. And then you retire, and you have this identity crisis.
Sure.
And, and then while still growing, the business I had, met my wife in college, tried to date her forever. She finally gave me a date.
Good woman.
Exactly. We get engaged. We move down to Charlotte. We get married, and plan to start a family. And what's interesting is that on January 5th, 2017, my definition of hard really changed forever. Ironically, I was at the gym in the middle of a workout, and I got a phone call from the doctor, and she said, "Christopher," and I said, "Yes," and she said, "I'm sorry, but you have thyroid cancer."
Wow.
And my mind went blank. I'm 31 years old at the time, and really trying to figure out what does this all mean.
But did you go to the doctor because you thought something was off in your body?
Yeah,
got
so
blood work done,
months,
stuff like that?
Yeah, about 4 months prior, things just really started changing. My zeal for life was going away. My zeal for working out was going away. I didn't want to go to work. My happy place was either in bed or on the couch.
Wow.
Couple years into my marriage, and this should be the most enjoyable time, and young love and all that. And I was just so out of it.
So that was the pivotal point. You got that diagnosis, and you were like, everything's going to change in my life, one way or another.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and
go ahead.
No. So and what's interesting is that for probably the first year of my diagnosis, I was the token victim.
Right.
Just sitting around and waiting for doctors in science and medicine to do their job, and nothing was working. And I was falling deeper and deeper into this hole of kind of, despair and victimhood and why me? And so it really was just a matter of, and the cancer didn't go away. It kept coming back, and I kept having more surgeries and more treatments. And, really it was just one day kind of waking up and shifting that mindset.
So let's talk about mindset a little bit. Like, how important is the mindset in achieving fitness goals compared to the actual physical effort?
In my estimation, it's 90 to 95% of the equation.
Amazing.
Waking up with the right mindset, waking up with the right expectations, waking up with the ability to understand what you're in control of and what you're not in control of. Being able to take real inventory on your life, and not just once in a while. For some of us it's weekly, for some of us it's biweekly. But if we're going more than a couple weeks without sitting down and asking ourselves some really good questions about our life, where we're at, where we're going, and who's in it, months are going to turn into years of being stuck in the same place.
So is this when you created the Vasami method?
So I created the Vasami method a few years later out of a lot of work that I had done, not just with trying to get healthy while still battling cancer, but also being able to take the experiences that I've had with my playing career, with coaching one-on-one, and really boiling it down to helping people understand, what it means to find their personal greatness through their lifestyle and their nutrition.
Let's talk nutrition then. I hear all the time about the 80-20 rule of eating. Can you expand on what that is? Because that's a huge practice within the Vasami method.
Yeah. 80-20 rule is 80% of the time single ingredient, whole foods. that we are consuming. And 80% of the time does not mean Monday through Friday. 80% of the time means Monday through Sunday. The problem is that we as human beings want to believe that as long as we are above average, then we are doing something right. Well, if you take 7 days and divide it by 2, that's 3.5. So if we round up to 4 out of 7 days, we believe that's above average. Well, 4 out of 7 is a 57%.
Right.
And if we bump it up to 5 out of 7 days, it's a 71%. So, the Monday through Friday, and then I get lax on the weekends, that's where we really fall into a lot of trouble. So being able to wrap your head around 80% of the week, single ingredient, whole foods, daily discipline, that allows us the flexibility and the intuition to the other 20% of the time, enjoy.
So
Have the extra glass of wine.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I see people do that all the time, Monday to Friday. They're like, all I had was a salad for lunch. I had a chicken breast for dinner. And then they go out with their friends on the weekends, and it's like they had chicken wings, burgers, they had 72 martinis. And it's like, well, all that work you did during the week just went down the drain.
Well, that's what it is. And if you look at it from a calorie perspective, let's just say that, we're eating 2,000 calories Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends that bumps up to 3,500 or 4,000 calories. Well, that's how we stay stagnant. Right. That's how we don't see, and that's how we end up getting frustrated because, again, going back to the mindset of, well, Monday through Friday I was great, and I earned this on the weekends. Like, no, you earn it every single day. Mm-hmm. Because as an individual, I want to honor myself on a daily basis, not Monday through Friday.
Can you just walk me through what your day looks like as Chris Vasami? Because I'm pretty sure, having not really known you deeply for a long time, I'm pretty sure you have a very strict regimen, like a certain time you wake up, a certain time you do things, a certain meal plan that, you do for yourself. What does that look like?
Sure. We'll just take today, for instance. So today my alarm goes off at 4:20, downstairs in the kitchen, big glass of water, pre-workout, sit down in the living room, and I read the Stoics. I read another reflection book. I read a little bit of the Bible, and I just kind of really just set the day.
So health for you isn't even just it's not just the food. It's the whole package. You start your day reflecting. Mental
package.
Health.
Because, gratitude is I live my life by the 4 G's, which I've created, which is grind, grit, grace, and gratitude.
Grind, grit, grace, and gratitude. I love it.
Yeah. So every day has a component of each of those 4 things. And they're all skills that we have to develop. We're not born, some people are always born with it. She's born with it. We're all born with the same stuff.
Right.
Some things might come easier. Some things might come harder, but they're all skills that can be developed over time if we just put the work in and really understand what we are willing to do as a human being and find out, what our priorities are through experimenting. Like, we have to experiment with this stuff to find out what works for us. I still battle cancer today, and I still battle hypothyroidism. And, I joke all the time because when I go and I talk, I bring up, obviously my baseball career, but then I bring up, I never knew that living with uncontrollable hormones was going to be this hard. Right. And inevitably women perk up and they're like, what'd you just say? I was like, yeah, no, uncontrollable hormones. And they're like, okay, cool. And I'm like, ladies, if you want to do a breakout session afterwards and sit in a circle and light some candles and talk about hormones, I'm here for it.
Oh my God, I love it.
And so, I always say that, for me, when Western medicine, because I'm on meds now for the rest of my life, I just have to be, and that's okay. And in Eastern medicine, some of the things that I've found work for me, and my spirituality, when the 3 of those are the most aligned and intertwined, I'm in a really good place, and I'll take anything that comes my way.
So what are some of the holistic approaches you're incorporating into the Vasami method and the training with the young athletes?
Starting with the mental side of stuff, being able to shift your perspective, being able to have perspective, being able to set goals, being able to fall in love with the process. I say all the time, are you willing to fall in love with the process without being emotionally attached to the results? Because a lot of times we work the opposite. We get so emotionally attached to the results. We secure our identity in results and performance and what can I put on social media and what can I show the world, as opposed to the process is going to show you exactly who you are as a person and the destinations that you can get to by being in love with the journey and the process. So some of the holistic things for me is having gratitude, having perspective. You know, people ask me all the time, well, how do you just shift your perspective like that? Well, it's, you know, sometimes it's just really as simple as I have two little girls, 5 and 4. So sometimes it's as simple as, you know, you're staring at the rain being like, oh, what a yucky day. And then my 4-year-old goes, but Dad, don't you know how fun it is to play in the rain? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. You know, sometimes it's you go to a Mexican restaurant, and if the server were to come over and drop 30 tortillas on the table and say, hey, here's to get you started, what would you like to drink? You'd be like, why do I have 30 tortillas? I can't eat 30 tortillas.
Right.
But if that server went in the back and cut them up into little triangles and fried them and brought them back out with salsa and queso, you'd eat every single one of those chips.
Absolutely.
So it's just a matter of being able to have perspective, but also allowing yourself the ability to do that, which takes practice. You know, I think also one of the best things that we can do as humans from an emotional intelligence standpoint is being able to understand how to grieve and have gratitude at the same time. Mm-hmm. We all go through stuff. That's what binds us as human beings. It's struggle and adversity.
Absolutely.
But while you're going through it, you know, and you are in the grieving process, you know, I went through it myself. I was grieving the life I used to have. I'm grieving the life I currently have. I'm grieving the life I'm going to have one day, but all while waking up in full gratitude because I have a wife that loves me and supports me. I have 2 little daughters that love me and I need to be there for. I have clients that still trust me and care about me. I am given the choice to get out of bed every day, whether it's not that easy, and sometimes I don't feel good enough to do it, but I'm given those choices. And, you know, these are responsibilities that we have to be proud of and willing to put in the work in for.
So you work very closely developing child athletes in your training programs. What are the biggest challenges you see with kids and nutrition right now, or even the mindset-related struggles they may have? Because there's a lot of pressure on kids in general these days.
Yeah, I think it's 2 things. The first thing from a nutrition standpoint is the real addiction to sugar and processed foods, mm-hmm. and the pickiness at the same time. You know, I think it comes down to the exposure to foods. Mm-hmm. How many of the foods have you been exposed to? How many foods have you tried? How many foods, you know, and the knowledge behind it, right? Like, if a kid doesn't know why he needs to eat carbs, fats, and proteins, he won't do it.
Right.
So it's building that knowledge behind it and being able to get on their level and say, hey, based off of the goals that you say you have, X, Y, and Z, here's the process. And one of those processes, I need you to eat more chicken. I need you to eat more salmon. I need you to eat more vegetables. I need you to eat, you know, like, I don't put Parmesan cheese on your broccoli. I don't care. We just need to get the broccoli,
you got to get the broccoli
and the nutrients. Right. We got to get it in. So, and then I think, you know, going hand in hand with that is the, you know, kind of the identity attachment to social media.
Chris, stay right there. I want to talk about that as soon as we get back from the commercial break. Stay tuned. You're listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970 The Answer.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Welcome back to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970. The Answer.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this episode is the first of the new year, so it's about health and, being well in life. Health is wealth. That's what they say. So on the show, I have Chris Vasami. Chris is the founder of the Vasami method and Vasami training, and he's been taking us through his journey, through some health struggles, how he's changed his life. A lot of it started with mindset. Chris, welcome back to the show. Before we went to commercial break, we were just starting to dive into, how nutrition and the proper mindset plays a huge role in developing the child's athletes that you train. And we were just starting to talk about the social media impact. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. I say to the kids all the time, whether I'm talking with my high school athletes or my college athletes, that I really don't envy the time that they're in right now.
I agree.
Because of the constant distractions that they have. Yep. I'll give you a quick example. If a player comes in for a training session, more often than not, an individual comes in and instead of prepping their body to prepare to go train, to swing a bat, to get better for the next 45 minutes, they sit down and they get on their phone, which they were probably just on their phone in the car on the way to the session.
Right.
But there's this constant need for attention and these dopamine hits, and then you throw in the FOMO of what am I missing? Who am I not hanging out with? Yeah. And it's just, it creates this really dark downward spiral that a lot of them don't even know that they're in. And so, what I try to bring to their attention is that the average high school kid spends 4 hours a day across social media platforms.
That's disgusting.
So if you as an athlete who, if you want to get to the next level, and the next level is on a broad basis the 6%, basically 6% of high school athletes across all sports go to the next level. Well, the question every day is, are you part of the 94% or are you doing part of the 6%?
Right.
And then once I get to be part of the 6%, now how do you be part of the 1%? And there's a lot of sacrifices that have to be made. And the reason why I say that, there's an identity attachment to this is because now everybody has a platform to go and show their performance. I'm 39 years old. When I was going through it, we didn't have any of this stuff. They wrote about you in the paper. You came out in a national paper once a month. Yeah. You didn't know who the guy in California was. You didn't know the guy in Florida until at the end of the year. So the work was really you versus you at the end of the day, as opposed to you going on and posting, some mediocre highlight for likes, clicks, and attention.
Yeah. Huge distraction. I mean, I hate it. I see it even with my own kids. My children are small. They're 5 and 8. I don't let them have social media. I try to monitor any kind of internet access as much as I can. But I get questions like, can I have Instagram? Can I have an Apple Watch? Can I have a phone? I'm like, absolutely not. I'm like, I didn't have any of that growing up, and I came out just fine. So just focus on being a kid. You're never going to get this time back in your life where you can just focus on being innocent. You don't need these other distractions. And when they do ask me some curious questions, I know exactly where they're getting this from. They were with their friends on their phone. Like my one son was like, this kid in his class has an Apple Watch. I'm like, you're in 2nd grade. Get out of here. Yeah. Not happening.
And we can do a whole session on, who are your kids hanging out with? I know a lot of parents now. My oldest is in kindergarten, but I know a lot of parents of the kids that I train who are either in the same school or other schools that are starting to form these packs of saying like, hey, we're basically signing petitions that say our kids are not getting any social media until 16, and if you're not on board, either we're leaving the group or you're leaving the group.
I love that. I would be all in on that. I think that's great. There's no benefit, zero, for a child having social media, those pressures in life at a young age. Right. I think we're not even going to see the impact until these children are like 25, 30 years old of how it's really affected them.
Absolutely. And I think that's what it is. So when it comes to the holistic, balanced piece of it, we're trying to give them all the tools necessary to handle whatever is going to come their way.
I love it. All right. What are the non-negotiables in your life when it comes to your personal health and wellness? I mean, we started to talk earlier about it, about like how you start your day. And I think we got stuck around like, I don't know, 6:30 in the morning after the reflection. But like, I'm sure, you know, the meal plan is very specific. Like, what are the non-negotiables? You're like, every day I need to do this. I need to put this in my body to be the best version of myself.
So I would say first and foremost, I have to work out 7 days a week.
7.
And obviously, you know, everybody's like, well, we need an off day. And yes, there's levels to what I do working out, but there is some sort of movement every single day because of the ability to help me wrangle in what I'm in control of and how it makes me feel and how it sets me up for the rest of the day. So that would be the first non-negotiable. The second non-negotiable is absolutely getting enough protein. And it could be from many, many different sources. It could be from edamame, tofu, shrimp, seafood, salmon, any type of fish, ground turkey, I really don't eat beef a lot just because I don't really process it the same way anymore, so I don't feel good when I eat it. But,
is that since you've been on like the synthetic hormone medication?
Yep.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But, you know, chicken, plant protein, whatever it is, there's so many sources out there, so there's really no excuse to not get the right amount of protein for you as an individual. And that's always going to change, you know, obviously based on what you're doing, what your goals are. And then the other piece for me really is trying to choose hard every single day in some capacity, whether it's mentally, spiritually, emotionally, or physically, or sometimes all four.
Did you ever read the book by David Goggins?
Yeah.
My guest later in the hour, you know, he's on, I know you know him, Matt Schiffman.
Yes.
He was like big into David Goggins, and during COVID, he was reading a lot of those types of books, and like, he would post about it. So I would see it, and I, you know, was also reading a lot during COVID, during quarantine, and I read those books, and, you know, the power of the mind, it's just so interesting. It changed me, I think, as a person, because it changed my perspective. But I feel like you and David Goggins align with, you know, your regimens and your non-negotiables. Like every day you're working out, every day you're eating clean 80% of the time, but I feel like you're probably more like 90%. But like, what are your thoughts on him? Because he's a little bit more on the militant side of aggressively pursuing his goals.
Yes, and I think I will give you a for instance, okay? I had a pretty scary 9 days about a year ago that it was probably the scariest 9 days of this whole health journey that I've been on. My meds really just stopped working. The cocktail wasn't right, and I slept about 25 hours in 9 days.
Oh, my goodness. And
I know there's listeners out there being like, oh, my gosh, if I get less than 8 hours, I'm a monster.
Yeah.
So, and it was one of those things where I was just, you know, at this point where I was basically hallucinating and just spiraling. So I ended up getting some meds and to help me sleep. And as I started to get a little bit more regulated, I started to look at the relationship between severe hypothyroidism, which I have, and brain function. And I just kept seeing serotonin production or low serotonin or no serotonin. And, you know, serotonin is a happy hormone. It makes you feel rational and secure and joy, and it helps you reframe your mind, and it helps you, you know, before you go down this dark hole, you're like, no, that's not reality. And so serotonin production is both in the gut and the mind. And so I called up my doctor down in Charleston, and I said, hey, can you send me the hormonal test kit that you have? You know, I don't think I just want to get a kind of a baseline of where I'm at. I don't think I'm producing any serotonin. So she sent it. I sent it back, and basically it confirmed what I thought. So I called my primary, and we talked, and I got on an SSRI, which is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which is, you know, like a Zoloft or something like that. And it has been a huge piece of the puzzle that I wish I was on it 5 years ago.
Wow. So
and
you really have to be your own advocate, though. You knew something 100%. Was wrong in your body.
Absolutely, yeah. And the reason why I tell that story is because this was not a mind over matter situation. This was a biochemical situation. This was a physiological situation. So David Goggins, for those 9 days, could have been sitting on the couch with me, reading his book to me, and it wouldn't have made any difference.
Interesting.
And so the reason why I say that is because mind over matter works if you are chemically balanced.
Correct.
And so there's times where I want people to advocate for themselves, like, hey, what I used to do isn't working. What I used to think isn't working. How I used to cope isn't working. You know, the things I used to do aren't working. So I want people to feel like they have the power to go and say, hey, something's wrong, something's not right, and I need to get to the bottom of it.
Right. Well, Chris, I thank you so much for your time today. I'm truly inspired by you, and I wish you success on your wellness journey. Check out Chris at VasamiMethod.com, and his Instagram is at Chris Vasami. I'll put links up for everything when I post the show. Thanks again, Chris. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate, on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Welcome back to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970. The Answer.
Welcome back. This is the show about health and wellness. I had Chris Vasami, founder of the Vasami Method, on earlier, and now I'm going to have my really good friend Matt Schiffman on. Matt isn't just a very close friend of mine, though. He is someone that I consider family at this point in my life. His wife, Samantha, is one of my best friends. I love his children. I love him. He is truly my health guru friend who I reference for all things health and wellness related. I mean, he makes his own almond milk daily, and he grows sprouts in a jar on his countertop in his kitchen. Like, he knows everything about health and wellness. He takes his health very seriously, and I've had a front row seat over the years watching him tailor a lifestyle for himself that requires an all-in mentality. The discipline he has is beyond inspiring. He's completely transformed his life into what it is today, and he's going to share with us this incredible journey and how anyone can live healthier with just a few small, impactful changes. Now, Matt and I are pretty much just like retired New York City party people. We've spent many late nights and very early mornings with our group of friends, not exactly living a healthy lifestyle. But Matt has a very interesting story. So I want to welcome Matt Schiffman to the show. Welcome, Matt. I love you.
Thank you, Christina. Great to be here.
Tell me and all of our listeners here the pivotal moment when you said enough was enough. I'm making a change. I need to start living healthier. Start from the beginning.
Yeah, my story, I'll take it back to, I grew up as, I was probably what you would call a chubby kid for most of my life. I was able to transition into more of an athlete, but that came with a lot of weight gain. I finished high school at about 250 pounds. I had become a decent football player, was able to continue my football career into college, but that came with more weight gain, and I got up to over 300 pounds. And then as my college football career ended, and my athletic career ended, I went to New York City and started to work in investment banking. And I can tell you that being a 300-pound offensive lineman in college very quickly turns into just a wildly unhealthy lifestyle in New York City, as you mentioned.
Well, when you have a little bit of coin, doing the investment banking, the sky's the limit.
Exactly. And I lived that unhealthy lifestyle of just weight gain, loss, and certainly not focusing on my health and wellness for a long time. And then, as you said, I had an aha moment. it was a New Year's resolution effectively for me. But I woke up on January 1st, 2013, and I was just looking at pictures from the night before, and I had reached my breaking point. I was tired of living this lifestyle. I looked horrible in pictures. I was sweaty and had the double chin, and I was a mess. And since that day, I have really been kind of grinding ever since. So I'm 10 plus years into this journey.
I know. And I came into your life, not on that New Year's Day. Like, I was probably maybe a year after that. Like, you were, in my mind, already looking like a very healthy person by the time I met you. And you were the keto Guido at that time, right? You were just like protein. Now you're living a vegan lifestyle for, some health reasons. You've decided you want to, do vegan. But it's just been interesting to watch you, no matter where you are in your life, you commit to the healthy lifestyle. And it's very inspiring. You've inspired me personally, just how to be healthier with some small changes. So I just want to talk first about, right now, you are the head of sales at Gainful, which is, a pretty fast growing nutrition and supplement company. Can you tell me more about Gainful and what you have going on there?
Yeah. So, I've been in this industry for quite some time now, going on 10 years. As I mentioned, I started my career in investment banking. And as I got more and more into just health and fitness and nutrition and wellness, I kind of started to realize that I wanted to make that my career as well. So I joined the industry. Previously, I was with another company and did that for 6 or 7 years. I was able to grow that company to a pretty big scale, but recently got the opportunity to move over to Gainful, which as a company is, I would say, more aligned with my personal values, just a super premium, clean, simple sports nutrition company. So we sell products that help people with their health and fitness and wellness journey, from protein powders to creatine to greens to hydration products, just clean, simple things, and taking a slightly differentiated approach and trying to add some personalization. So not just doing the same thing that every sports nutrition company is. So extremely excited about the opportunity and hopefully coming to a store near you.
Yeah, I hope so. But I find companies like this, like Gainful and these other nutrition companies, sometimes to be overwhelming. Like, I go on these websites because, I always follow your progress. So I want to shop wherever you're working. So right now I'm a Gainful customer, right? So I find these websites overwhelming. I don't know exactly what my body needs. Like, how can you give me tips for, like, I'm a newbie, like how to navigate sites like this? Like, I don't know if I need whey protein or like what's creatine? I have no idea what these words even mean.
I'm going to give an answer that might come off as slightly surprising as somebody who sells supplements for a living. First off, totally agree with everything you're saying. It is intimidating. And I think historically the category was even more intimidating. It was like very masculine products with named after explosives and horror movies, and walked into this aisle or the GNCs of the world, and it was rather intimidating. Now, a lot of that is changing. But to answer your question more directly, I think that if you're at the early stage of your journey and it is intimidating and you don't know what to do, then you may not need it. Supplements are exactly that. They are a supplement to your lifestyle. When you get your diet, exercise, sleep under control, then maybe we can start to think about if you should be adding some creatine or some fish oil or some protein powder. But there are what I would call kind of other low-hanging fruit that people should focus on first before worrying about supplementation.
I love that honest answer, Matt. Like, you could have very easily been like, Gainful, we have this. This is great for women specifically. Like, you should get that. But you just gave a very true answer. I appreciate that. Now, ingredients as a whole in America are very tricky. And sometimes people think they're getting something that's healthy when it actually is doing more harm than good. What are some ingredients you see on labels that are just absolute deal breakers for you that you're like, I'm not putting that in my body?
I think it's really important that people zoom out here. Don't get lost in the weeds trying to assign some moral value to foods. I think that everybody generally knows what are good food choices and what are bad food choices, right? If I put a plate of spinach in front of you and a plate of Snickers in front of you, everybody pretty much knows what the right choice there is. Mm-hmm. I think your goal should be focused around get enough protein and try to not overeat. With those two goals in mind, that's pretty much all that matters. Don't worry about if you see a seed oil in the ingredient list or if you see an artificial sweetener on a label. Like, sure, is broccoli better than a packaged food? Of course. But do you need me to tell you that? Probably not. What I think is most important and what people should really be focused on is what are you going to do for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years? Consistency. That is what's key here. That's what you need to figure out. Can anybody do a crash diet and avoid canola oil? Sure. But is that sustainable for the next oncoming decade? That's what people really need to focus on.
Right. And, Chris Vasami was on earlier in the hour. He also made a huge push to just incorporate protein daily, if not with every meal. Like, how often are you incorporating, because I know you're vegan, the plant-based protein? Is that the center of every meal for you throughout the day?
It is. It certainly is. And if we had more time here, I could walk you through. I've been on every fad diet and I've tried everything.
I know you have. Yeah.
And it's been a journey for me. And if we did this interview 5 years ago or 10 years ago, my answers would have been very different. I mean, what worked for me, for the majority of my journey, was on like a very low-carb, high-protein diet, for example. Now, in hindsight, why that was successful for me is twofold. One, it reduced calories because I had removed a certain food group that I wasn't eating. It wasn't because there was some magic in not eating carbs. The magic was that I was simply eating less calories. Right. Then two, I certainly focus, and I have focused on protein for effectively my whole life. But I think that if you focus on protein, get enough protein, and I would define enough protein as about a gram of protein per pound of body weight. Now, we can get into the weeds on that if we want to, but again, like, you want to just have enough lean protein with every single meal that's a pretty high number. And if you're hitting that number and you're managing your calories, everything else falls into place. And it's also going to be the most satiating. So you're going to feel good. You're going to feel full. You're not going to want to overeat if you're focused on those lean proteins.
Totally. How do you maintain your disciplined eating habits while traveling? Because I know for your position for work, you are on airplanes a lot. You're moving around the country, visiting some new clients and things. But you eat very specifically. Like, you're vegan. That's probably one of the hardest, I think, lifestyles to maintain. Like, even in an airport, like, what are you grabbing to kind of satiate yourself as to not fall off the tracks, like fall off the wheels or whatever?
Yeah, so listen, traveling is hard. Anytime you break out of like your everyday routine, whether that's eating out, traveling, visiting friends, I kind of lump those all into the same category of outside your normal routine. Like, it can be hard. And for me, some advanced preparation when traveling can be helpful. I do like to bring food with me as opposed to being like at the mercy of whatever the airport has. But again, what's most important for me is just keeping the trend line going in the right direction. Let's say you can't, for whatever reason, prepare your food for the airplane, and you do get hungry, and you do need to eat something. Just make the best decision you can and keep moving forward. I think what's most important is that the trend line stays in the right direction. You've got to be focused on long-term goals and not short-term results. Don't starve yourself, because anybody can starve themselves or do a crash diet for a certain amount of time, but like, that's not going to last over the years. So it's just really important to make the best choices you can. If you fall off, like, don't let it totally derail you. Just get back on with the next meal and keep the trend line going in the right direction.
Love it. So nutrition plays a huge role in your life, obviously, and you have kids. I have kids. How do you encourage the healthy relationship with food with the children and have it be like not obsessive?
Yeah, this probably warrants a whole separate interview or podcast on nutrition for children, but I like to think about it a couple different ways. I mean, first and foremost for me, and my position on this, I've been a parent for 5, almost 6 years now, has evolved. I think that I came into this thinking some utopian scenario where my kids were only going to eat organic and grass-fed meat, and like, that's just not the reality. And even if you could make that the reality, to your point, like, I'm not sure that's even the best outcome because it could lead to disordered eating over time. So the way that I like to think about it is, first and foremost, is I want to set a good example. And I think that that's something that your kids are going to see the true colors over time. And my kids see me eating healthy. And so they're going to model that behavior, and I don't force anything on them. My kids, I'll give you a great example. I mean, like you said, I am vegan. My kids don't eat vegan, but they make healthy choices, and I put them in a position to make decent choices. Like, I try to keep total crap outside of the house, right? There are no Fruit Loops in my house. The amount of time they've eaten fast food, for example, you could probably count it on one hand. But my kids eat ice cream. My kids do all the normal things. When they go to birthday parties, they have birthday cake, and I don't stress that at all. I try to just help them, put them in a position where they're able to eat healthy foods whenever they can. But I certainly don't stress it if they're not. And again, it's kind of like the same principles of just keeping them heading in the right direction. Try to let them make healthy choices where possible, but also I don't get stressed if they have birthday cake. But it's most important for me is just like setting that right example, because at the end of the day, kids are gonna see what you're gonna do, and they're gonna know your true color. So I think that the best thing I can do is just set a good example for them and let them make their own decisions.
Couldn't agree more. Matt, thank you so much for your time today. You know I love you. I'm so proud of everything you're doing in your personal life and professionally. If you want to learn more about Gainful, check out Gainful at www.gainful.com. Okay, thank you for listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. on AM 970 The Answer. And thank you to my inspiring guests this evening, Chris Vasami and Matt Schiffman. We're starting the year off on the right foot because of both of you. If you want to keep up with Culinary Confidential, please follow the show on Instagram at Culinary Confidential Christina. Tune in next week where I'll have Michael Checky as Alina on the show, the famed New York City maitre d' who is the owner of Checky's on 13th Street. Believe me, he's going to have some salacious stories to share. And I'm going to try to have my friend Bismarck Irving pop back on the show because he has some celebrity-filled stories from when he ran the nightclub Rainbow and Stars at the Rainbow Room. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.
The preceding program is sponsored by Shake It Off Live, LLC.